Hello and welcome back to Artsy-Island-Girl. So today we're going to make this card here, and it's a card that was included in my Big Shot for Beginners course, and I just figured I would go over the assembly. So when you have dies, they have obviously the blade to cut them, but sometimes you'll find dies that have openings that have no blade near them, and the purpose of that is for embossing. So what you can do is you can cut your die cut out, and then you can emboss all of those details into your die cut like that. Some of those openings you can use to ink and to stencil, but you can also do this. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. I've got several of my die cuts already embossed for the next step, but I'll show you how we're going to do that. So I've got my two dies there. I'm going to just poke that little piece of paper out of the eye just to make sure that it doesn't impact my die cutting. So I've got everything layered properly on my Big Shot machine. I've got my multi-purpose platform, the clear plate underneath it, my die facing up the paper, and then the plate over top of it. And you'll notice one of my plates are quite clear and one is very cut into. I typically keep one plate as clear as possible so that it stays flat, and then I keep one that I just cut into. So I'm going to open up the top flap there. I'm going to leave my paper in my dies. I'm going to just move this out just because it looks like it's shifted a little bit. And then I'm going to add my texture embossing, or my rubber embossing mat. And then I have a few sheets of cardstock that I just use for this purpose. Keep reusing them. You don't need a new one every single time. And then I'm going to put my other plate over top of it and put it through my machine. Now what that rubber mat does, and those pieces of cardstock, is it helps the machine push the paper into the grooves on your die cut. So that pushes and gives you all that detail on your dies there. So let's get this machine out of the way. So take a look at the dies that you have and just see if you happen to have ones that have openings that are intended for embossing or for stenciling ink, because a lot of them have it, and so many people don't even realize that that's what it's for. So this one I don't need, it's an extra. Let's put our sample card over here. And I'm going to use my Spellbinders tool-in-one to help take my die cut out of the die. It's great for taking little bits out of the die, but it's also great for pushing your die cut out of the die, especially ones that are a little bit more intricate, that you might have bits and pieces stuck in there. So I'm going to start gluing my card together first so that I have the base completely glued, so that once I go and, I'm going to use my Tombow Multi, once I go and add the die cuts, once I have them inked, I can just add them right to the front of my card. So the mats that I'm doing on this card are a little bit different from the sample, and the only reason for that is just to show you that you don't have to do everything exactly as the sample. Sometimes a different choice in a matte color makes different elements pop in your cards. There we go. So let's start by adding ink to this one here. So I need some green ink and brown. I've got my brushes here. Let's get my shells out of the way. So I'm going to put my brushes in the ink pad, and I'm just being very light-handed as I'm inking them. The nice thing about the brushes is you'll naturally get some lighter areas and darker areas, so you don't really have to work on shading as much. I like the green like that. And then I'm not coloring the whole bottom, I just want just the bottom edge, kind of like the sand on the ocean floor. If you wanted to go a little bit more detailed, you could color those shells, but because I'm putting some other ones on top of it, I'm not too worried about those right now. Let's get that to the side. I'm going to glue this on, but I'm going to leave this bit unglued so that I can tuck my little seahorse in there. And if you wanted, you could glue everything as you go. Sorry. If you wanted, you could have everything inked and ready to go and then glue it all at once. Neither way is right or wrong. So just be careful with this ink. I love it for gluing things down simply because it glues it really quickly. But if it dries without gluing anything down, it's kind of like a Post-it note. So that's a piece of paper, but there's a little bit that's squeezed out there. Any bit that squeezes out will remain tacky. So just be very careful when you are gluing them. And when it comes to inking your shells, as much or as little as you want. And I like to work on my glass mat simply because the glass is nice and slippery. So my brush slides over it really, really well. Now I'm getting some brown there because I had some brown on my glass. So just be aware of what color you've used where, because it definitely will transfer. There we go. I'm going to glue the small one here. But I'm going to wait for the next one because I know that I want this purple guy up there first. So I've got two different purple colors just because I like the combination of the two of them together. And I'm going to ink these two at the same time. Now I don't want any of the brown or the other colors transferring, so I'm just going to take a baby wipe and just clean that surface just so that I don't get any ink transfer. And I can use the same brush for both colors of purple. I'm going to do one on one side, one on the other side, so that the belly of the seahorse and the nose is one color of purple, and then the other side is the darker shade. And that ink takes a bit to dry, so I am getting a little bit of ink on my fingers. If you're worried about it transferring, you can always wipe your hands between each stage. There we go. I'm going to tuck this underneath here. I want it to look like he's tucked around that piece of seaweed there. And you can see that doing the embossing was really quite quick, but it just adds so much texture to the card. And there we go. Last seashell. Super quick and simple card. Very few supplies needed. I did use 3 different die sets for those die cuts, and I will list them down below. But look at all the texture that just embossing your die adds to the card. So check your dies out, see if you happen to have some that are meant to be embossed, and try them out. We'll see you in the next video. If this is the type of content you love to see, don't forget to hit subscribe.